Hello and welcome to the Speak Your Heat podcast. Today I am with.
Casey Howley, aka Lupus Fullcase, aka Daniel, aka Have Fun with That.
Oh gosh, so many aliases. So, how have you been doing today?
I've been doing really good.
Now, I understand that you like video games.
Very much, very much.
I gotta
I
say. Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I
I was just gonna say that I had like over 300 games in my Steam library, plus another probably few hundred, give or take, physical.
I'm just gonna admit this before you admit it for me. I've got like 1,500 hours in Hearts of Iron 4. It.
Yep, yep.
Oh gosh. So, speaking of that, would that actually so what kind of games do you have?
Um, I have all sorts of games. I have plenty of action games, good number of puzzle games, just all over the spectrum. I play a lot.
What would you say your favorite type of video game is?
Um, I'd say definitely action games. I'd say probably some of my favorite games overall are the Sonic games. So
Okay. I mean, obviously, by the time invested, I would say Hearts of Iron 4 and Grand Strategy is my
yeah,
forte.
I mean, I
uh,
have plenty of hours in Zelda and Terraria. So
yeah, those are both pretty good. So, if you had to look at what's coming out now, especially since fall's coming up and everything happens in fall, does anything pique your interest?
um, I'd say the thing most notably piquing my interest would be Fallout 76. Really interested to see where that's going.
Okay.
Um, Also, I think at E3 they revealed a game called Tunic, which is like which is kind of this actiony type. It's a Zelda. It's kind of like Zelda, but you're playing this little fox dude.
Okay.
So let me see if I can get that pulled up. Maybe I'll try and get a link to you if that's all right.
All right. So,
Copy that link.
you mentioned E3, and I know
Uh,
E3's.
there's Tunic.
All right. I know E3 is a big thing, somewhat. So, what were your feelings on E3 this year?
Um, I watched. I didn't go over all of it. I watched a few of the press conferences after the fact. I watched Jenna Bain riffing on some of them, but some of the games that were revealed seemed pretty cool.
Okay, that is good. So, you're not someone who's like E3 is hurting the consumer, etc., etc.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. What do you think about people whose opinions are that?
I mean, if that's their opinion, that's their opinion. I haven't really looked into any of the details regarding that, so I can't say whether it's true or not.
Okay.
I didn't do any of that research, so if the research backs it up, then I mean, the research backs it up.
All right. So, Legend of Zelda, one of the biggest game series of games out there. What would you say is your favorite Legend of Zelda?
Um, I'm kind of torn between three. I love Ocarina of Time, and after I finally managed to get through it, Twilight Princess is a really good one. Though kind of long, but aside from that, pretty good. But I'm thinking I gotta say Breath of the Wild, the new one.
Breath of the
It's
Wild.
just,
Go ahead.
I think it's just an exceptional Zelda game. I love like all of the mechanics and really like brings together like all the branches of the timeline franchise, whatever.
Breath of the Wild is pretty good. Although I'd say Link to the Past is my favorite, but all the ones you mentioned are good. So on the other big Nintendo franchise, Mario. So Mario or Sonic? What's the difference, and why do you prefer, I assume, Sonic over Mario?
it's I'm not exactly sure what it is. I just prefer Sonic. I think I kind of like more of the fast paced and just I think it's part of the character design and the music more than anything. Mario's music is good, don't get me wrong, but like I think Sonic just has a more like consistently like memorable soundtrack.
Okay.
The Mario franchise has a few standout tracks, but I don't think it has as many standout tracks as like the Sonic series does, in my opinion.
Okay. So you prefer the soundtrack and the faster style of gameplay?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you have to choose, which I'm pretty sure you're gonna choose a computer over any of these, but if you have to choose Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation.
I'd definitely say Nintendo.
Okay.
Just a general quality thing overall, I feel.
All right.
I
So,
mean, aside from the Wii U, that was like a total flop, but I mean, it even actually wasn't that bad. It just wasn't really marketed well enough to get like good traction.
at least over here in the US.
Yeah, at least here in the US. Because it wasn't really clear from the US marketing that it was like its own console. It like really like seemed like just like an add-on of some sort.
Yeah, and when you go to the store and see a $300 add-on to the Wii, you're like, nah, I'll pass, man.
Yeah.
uh, so, what do you think? What did you start gaming on? When you started gaming,
Um
what were you on?
uh I think one of the earliest I don't really have any memory of this, but according to my parents, I think one of the earliest things I have memory with one of the earliest things I played was the GameCube, though the earliest thing I have memory with was playing with my dad's Game Boy Color.
Okay. Man, that makes me feel like I started on the old stuff when I look back that I was playing on a Super Nintendo. uh, so when did you first get on Steam, and what do you think makes computers better than consoles or worse than consoles?
Um, I have been on Steam for. Hold on, let me pull this up because everyone has that badge.
Yeah.
Where is that badge at? Here's a service. I've been on Steam for about 4 years, give or take.
Okay. So that's a good long while. So what make
So,
Go ahead.
sorry. No, you go ahead.
So what makes computers better or worse than consoles in your opinion?
My opinion is I think just personally, I prefer, and it really just depends on the game, which is why I have a gamepad. But overall, as per game, I just find mouse and keyboard to be more accurate. That's why I play a lot of games with the on the computer.
Okay.
But overall, I think it's just an accessibility thing. You have a lot more accessibility of games on the computer than you do on consoles, though I guess that is starting to shift a little bit. There's a lot more things starting to come out on consoles now than there used to be. So,
Yeah.
but I still say in terms of general accessibility, PC is pretty useful. I mean, and also like with platforms like Steam saving money, there's that.
Steam summer sale. Oh
All of the
gosh.
Steam sales. And they like have sales like every day of every week of every year, and it's like awesome.
Okay. So, you said that Steam has more accessibility, so I'm gonna ask, do you think Xbox or PlayStation exclusives are helping or hurting consoles? And Nintendo
Um,
exclusives included in that.
I really can't say. I'd say they definitely help console sales, but whether or not they help games in general, I'm not exactly sure. I don't prefer exclusives, but that's, just my opinion.
Okay. So, you said computers are the best for accessibility. Now,
I
I'm gonna
I
throw
feel that.
I'm gonna throw a wrench at you and say, well, what if your computer's trash?
I mean, even if your computer's trash, there's always like a good number of games that you can still play. There
Okay.
are games, and sometimes it depends like on how the game was developed. But there's plenty of games that even low end PCs can run pretty well.
Okay. Yeah. So, sorry, my voice is just like, no, I'm not gonna cooperate.
That
uh,
happens. That happens.
yeah. But so you said you've been on Steam for 4 years. What do you think is the best and worst thing you've seen Steam do?
Um, I'm not really sure. I think I'd say one of the better things that Valve and Steam has done is trying to crack down on some of the gambling stuff.
Okay.
But more recently, I think they announced that they were gonna like kind of stop policing content as much,
Mm,
which that has its ups and downs. But I think generally that might be you know at least somewhat of a good thing.
okay. So, what do you think about DLC policy? I'm gonna give you an example. So, what if a game is released that's not necessarily complete? Uh,
Um,
technically speaking, it can run, but practically speaking, half of it is not fun to play. And then they subsequently release $20, 15, $10 DLC along the line the next couple of years.
um, Releasing an incomplete game, I'd say, is probably not the best thing unless you're doing something like you're releasing it as like a beta. That's kind of why I like the early access notes on Steam and other places, because you know that what you're getting isn't really the final product. So if you know what you're getting, like for incomplete games, then I'd say like I guess it's fine. But if they're trying to use DLC to patch their issues, I'd say that's not really not a good practice.
The example I did give you was Paradox and what they've been
Yeah.
doing forever.
Yeah.
uh, so you know,
Some games do handle DLC pretty well.
okay,
Um some games handle it kind of in an iffy way. One of the more iffy DLC things as of recent was the Supersonic DLC for Sonic Forces. A
okay,
thing that really should have been in the game from the get go,
all
being
right.
released as a DLC was not good. But I guess at least they did release it as a free DLC as opposed to, you know,
As opposed, you gotta pay $10 and you get this. So what did that
yeah.
add, anyways?
The Supersonic DLC?
Yeah.
Yeah, it added what it says it added. It added Supersonic into the game, so it allows you to play as Supersonic on both classic and modern Sonic stages. So, which
Okay.
that should have been in the game from the get go, but I guess it was weird because the Chaos Emeralds were never like addressed in the game at all. Which Sonic Forces is a whole nother like can of worms I don't even want to go into.
uh, but I will say that Paradox has done that for a while. It kind of annoys me. But
Yeah.
when the game first came out, it was good. It was playable if you played any of the major nations, but if you played any of the colonial nations, like the Raj or any of that, it was unplayable because you couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Luckily, they did fix that with a $15 DLC.
I'm trying to look through my game library to see if I can find games that did DLC. Right. I know I have a few somewhere in here, but
yeah, but
I don't remember offhand specifically.
okay. So, but like when they did that, it was good, and then they just kept going more and more, and you look back on Europa Universalis, and you're like, oh, this is $200 of DLC.
Yeah.
uh, Heck, there are games like that, like Train Simulator or whatever. I can't remember what it's called, but it's something to do with trains. It's got like $1,000. if you get, if you like
Yeah.
add them all up, it's like,
Yeah, it's like stupidly.
yeah, it's like
Um,
why?
but if you're releasing if your game is complete and you're using DLC as a way to add an expansion pack, then I think that's perfectly fine use of DLC.
Okay.
I think games like Crypt of the Necrodancer, I think they did that pretty well. Because the main game was, for the most part, done when they released it, and then they did release a DLC, which was just an expansion to the original game.
Okay.
Which, I mean, that's kind of what expansion packs already were, so...
Yeah. So, I'm going to ask first-person shooters or third-person shooters? Or both?
I really don't have a preference either way. I'd say, of those two, I probably play... And it depends on what you mean by third-person shooter. If you're talking about any game that is third-person and is a shooter game, then I'm not sure if I play more of those or not. But
Okay.
I have a lot of good, first-person shooter games that I've played.
Okay.
I'd say my favorite would be BioShock.
Okay, yeah. Alright. I'm gonna ask you another thing. Mass Effect. Yes or no?
I have never played Mass Effect.
Oh, you've never played Mass Effect?
I have never played Mass Effect.
Well, I mean, I assume you've heard of Andromeda, what happened
I
there.
did. I heard of the kerfuffle that was that game.
Okay.
They probably should have left that in the oven for a little bit longer, but
Yeah, it seems like it. uh, Alright. So, old Battlefront or new Battlefront?
um, those are games I really haven't played either.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, I'm basically asking you, EA or not EA?
I'd say probably see, I don't necessarily have a problem with EA themselves. They have games that they've released that have been pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just their general policies and how they handle situations a lot of times I really don't agree with.
Yeah.
So I'd say in that regard, probably the originals Battlefronts were probably better.
I have played
But
Battlefront, the original Battlefront 2, and I've played EA's Battlefront. So out of those two, I would choose the older one, personally speaking.
yeah,
Mostly because I don't have to be like, oh, look, there's someone who's done some stuff and used money. I can't beat
yep.
them. uh, but so just a general question as I'm switching topics now.
All right.
Great transition. uh, but what do you think government policy in gaming should be?
Um, that one I'm not sure about.
You got no idea. Should like the federal government have no involvement in gaming? Should it just
I
leave it like
mean,
it is?
I think it doesn't most likely doesn't really need a lot of intervention, but in general, there are kind of here and there some shady things some shady goings on in the industry. So, but
Okay.
that's kind of can be the same can be said for like a lot of industries. So
Oh yeah.
I really can't say either way how much intervention is really needed.
All right. So, what do you think about the rating system on games like E to M?
I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a problem with the rating system.
Okay. So you think there should be a rating system?
I think there should be a rating system. It, I mean, it could potentially be work to be a bit better, but for the most part, it does its job.
All right.
At least from what I've seen.
All right. There's no game meant for little kids that is rated M, or no uh game that's rated E that's like showing torture.
I
All
mean,
right.
the rating system does change over time, so that's just to be expected with a rating system because as, acceptable, as what's acceptable changes, so does the ratings.
Oh yeah. Like you can see that Star Wars: A New Hope, which features two charred corpses, was rated PG.
Yeah,
Different times.
different
Uh,
times.
so as for people getting concerned about gaming disorder and people spending too long on video games, etc., what do you feel on that?
Overall, I think the gaming disorder itself, as classified by the World Health Organization, is a little iffy.
Okay. How is it classified by the World Health Organization?
Let me read the "What is gaming disorder" section from their actual page.
All right.
So, gaming disorder is defined in the draft 11th revision of the ICD-11 as a pattern of gaming behavior, quote, digital gaming or video gaming, characterized by impaired control over gaming, increasing priority given to gaming over other activities to the extent that gaming takes precedence over other interests and daily activities, and continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences. I really not sure if it should be really on here or not, because it really just sounds more like it's just a general addiction, and
Mm,
it's usually what's behind, it's usually what's behind, the root cause, and not what's, addicted to per se. That's the problem.
okay. So you're saying it could be a symptom of something else going on.
Yeah, I think it's most likely a symptom of something else that's going on.
To me, that sounds like a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo for someone who's just like not who's just spending too much time on the computer.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I probably spend too much time on the computer. I don't really think I'm addicted per se, but I
Uh,
just, have my preferences on media.
oh yeah. I mean, you could replace the same thing with if you replaced video games with TV, the same could be said.
Yeah.
But of course, we can't go against TV. It's been our lifelong friend. uh,
Yes.
looks at news outlets, lifelong friend. uh, anyways, so your feeling on this is that it's probably a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, for the most part, I do think so.
Okay. So, what else do you have to say on well, actually, you know what? We'll go into this. In Europe, they've recently passed a copyright law, which is threatening memes and, well, is starting a black market for memes. Do you think Europe will do anything against video games after with
Um,
copyright laws?
I haven't really looked too much into the copyright law, the copyright law that they've proposed. I didn't look into it, really at all. I heard about it. Um, just it depends on like exactly how it works because I think for the most part, U.S. copyright works pretty well.
For the
for the
most part.
most part.
For the
Like
most part.
basically, if you want to use someone else's, generally speaking, if you want to use like priority, high priority, high tier, content from like that someone else has made, you usually have to, pay some sort of royalties or whatever.
Yeah.
But then usually it's not a problem. You pay the royalties and then you get access. And
Hmm.
then there's also fair use, which that's a gray area, but I'm generally in support of it.
All right. Um, I will also point out that Belgium has banned gambling, and this has been a problem for certain video games. Cough, cough, CS:GO. Cough, cough. Certain video games. They also banned loot boxes under gambling. So, how do you feel about that?
Um, that one's a bit. I'm a bit. I guess I could be. I guess I'd probably be a bit iffy on that one because I mean, I'm in like controlled environments. I think like some minor gambling and stuff isn't really a big issue, but as it stands now in a lot of places, I think it kind of is an issue, and it kind of does need to be addressed.
Okay.
Um, the current design of loot boxes is in and of itself very similar to gambling, though I'd probably I think it does need a bit of revision, but banning them like outright, I'm not sure if that would be the best solution.
So you're saying loot boxes need to be reformed, but not necessarily banned.
Yes.
Okay. So,
I think just to for the listeners, I think Extra Credits did a series of videos on loot boxes. I would recommend checking those out.
okay.
I'll see if I can give you the links when we're done with this, and you can
Yeah,
put
I'll
them in
throw
the
them.
description.
Yeah, I'll throw them down there. So, what do you think? What do you think about politically charged games?
Um, I mean, in terms of like free speech generally, I'd say I guess I really don't have an issue with them in terms of free speech, but it's probably not the best use of resources when you're for games.
Yeah. Now, what about? I'm gonna make an example of this. There was a game, Kingdom Come Deliverance, came out a little while back, and it was supposed to be fully historical as much as a game can be, and it did not have any black people in it. However, it took place in basically the center of Czechoslovakia. So it kind of makes sense. People were complaining it has no black people in it. Do you agree with their complaints, or do you think just let the creator create?
I'd say just let the creator create. They can really do what they want. Like, if they're going for historical accuracy and that is historical accuracy, then I don't really have a problem with it.
Okay.
I don't think because I don't really think in like the inclusive, all of this, high inclusivity stuff that everyone's complaining about is like it really depends on the thing, but I think a lot of it is likely unjustified and, just generally unnecessary for a lot of things. I'm not saying that we don't need to be inclusive of like, other races and ethnicities and whatnot, but
Do it
it's
where
just like
it's appropriate,
do it
not
where it's
everywhere.
appropriate. Don't do it everywhere.
All right. So, what do you think is your favorite game overall? Just overall over everything.
Uh, overall, over everything. This is a toughie because my preferences usually change like every like year or so when more things come out.
Yeah.
But my favorite game overall would definitely be Night in the Woods.
Okay, pretty good game.
Describing it is another story.
uh, it is a pretty good game. I've played a bit of it. I haven't finished it yet, but it's pretty good.
Looking at the Steam tags, I will read off the common Steam tags. Story rich, great soundtrack, atmospheric, adventure, indie, female protagonist, single player, colorful, cute, 2D, exploration, funny, mystery, platformer, drama, side scroller, walking simulator, psychological horror, Kickstarter, and horror. I agree with most of those tags. Not sure about the horror part. I mean, it's kind of in there, but it's like half in the side, really.
Okay.
There's a lot on the side, but there is, a big whole mystery thing, and there is a little bit of horror, but it's not like super major. So
Okay,
people don't have to worry about that if they want to play it.
I'm gonna talk about a more direct psychological horror that came out a little while back. Doki Doki Literature Club. Your feelings on that?
Um, I, I'm, I haven't played it. I've like seen some gameplay of it here and there when people talk about it, but I really wasn't interested in playing it myself. But that's just, my personal.
All right. I found it to be a good game. It's pretty good.
I don't doubt that.
I
I've
will.
heard I've heard good things about it.
I went into it blind, which is the best way you could go into that game, and
If
yeah.
I went into it if I went into it now, for the most part, I'd be like fairly blind on a lot of things, but I have, seen about some of the reveals mostly through memes and whatnot, but
Oh yeah.
I honestly don't care. I think I watched the game theories, which probably spoiled most of it, but whatever.
All
I
right.
wasn't really interested in playing it myself anyway, so.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Speaking on that, do you think watching Let's Plays before playing the game yourself is a good idea, or going in blind is a better idea?
Um, I think it's really a per person thing. If people want to get a good, like look into like what the game is and how it plays, then watching a Let's Play could help you with that. I think, and I don't necessarily think that it fully detracts from like the emotional aspects of the game, because I watched like a good example. I watched Markiplier's like full playthrough of The Last of Us, which was like the reason I went in to play it, and it did not detract at all from the emotion that the game had. I was still fairly emotionally moved by the game.
Okay. So you're saying it depends on the person, depends on the game, sort of thing?
Yeah, for the most part, I'd say so.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna now ask you about two big franchises. One of which the, the other, meh. So first one is the more previous one, Minecraft. What happened?
Um, for me personally, I loved Minecraft for a bit, but it just kind of started to fall apart for me because there really wasn't a lot to do. You do the same thing over and over and over again. And even with the mods, eventually you just get to the same point. You're the same thing over and over and over again, and there's really not a lot of variety to any of it. Some of the updates have been cool. I think the recent 1.13 update Aquatic has been pretty cool, at least from the content it adds.
Okay.
So, but I really don't play the game as much as I used to.
All right.
In fact, the last time I picked it up like a few days ago again, after having not played it for like 6 months. And I mean, I'm, still really not playing it all that much.
Okay. So now onto the other big franchise, which, if you look on YouTube, has the most complicated story I think I've ever seen in my life. My gosh, keeping up with it's like, I don't know. Gosh. But Five Nights at Freddy's. What in the world is
Um,
that mess?
that is that is what happens when someone designs a game and it gets way more popular than it probably should have ever been in the first place. It filled a role that I think people had been wanting. It filled a role that people had been wanting for a long time, and really, like, not many people had been able to really get right up until then. But it became so popular that the creator, Scott Cawthon, kept, just kept making them. The quality was still fairly good, but it started to, like, dwindle a bit as it went on. Some of
Yeah.
the games were better than the others, but
Okay.
the story just kept getting more and more and more complicated as more games were released, and I don't think it was ever supposed to get as complicated as it is.
The fact that game theory is having to do like 2 episodes over the release of basically a here's a hard challenge and a book, it dazzles me. It's like, oh, so there's a game that's supposed to be an extremely hard challenge and impossible at the highest difficulty, and then there's a book, and now you got to make two like 20-minute videos over it. My gosh.
Well, there's technically 4 books.
Well, yes, but I'm
There's
talking.
3 main books, and then there's that like half children's book that's like really weird.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna touch that one. I want to read the books just because like I've read some of like the backsplash pages on it, and it seems like a fairly interesting story. Just in general, that's like kind of why I'm still following the franchise, because I'm interested in the background story. But
Yeah. But what?
but I mean that's just like, aside from that, I really just stopped playing the games. I played through most of the first one. I played through like a little bit of the second one and just gave up. It was too hard for me. I played through the third one almost to its entirety. I played through both the good and the bad ending. I didn't ever get along to like the nightmare mode or whatever it was.
Okay.
And I only really played like a portion of 4 before I just kind of gave up on that too. I ended up buying Sister Location, and I never played that.
Hmm.
And I was gonna play Pizzeria Simulator, and I never really got around to that. And now there's Ultimate Custom Night, and I'm really not going to play that either.
Okay. Do you think this is the actual end of this franchise? Or do you think it's going to continue on for the next 5 years, releasing more and more and more?
As much as I'm not sure if it will continue, it's really up to Scott. But the popularity might just cause it to keep going, keep rolling until it just completely falls apart. But
Okay.
I would personally hope that he does end the story and move on to other things.
It would be nice to see him do a different thing, because obviously he's good at what he does.
Yes, he is very good at what he does.
Yeah, so I'd like to see him do something else.
Yes, yes.
So, we've covered the two big things, the two giants. Do you think these have some similarities in them?
Um, I mean, I think in how they just blew up. They both filled like roles that people had wanted, and this might be roles that people didn't even know that they wanted. But it filled roles that people wanted, and because of that, they just got massively popular really quickly. And just because of just how things go in general, it just started to fall apart a little bit. But I mean, at least in the terms of Minecraft, a lot of people are like still following it and still interested. I
Oh yeah.
think FNAF is just about as popular, though I think it's starting to dwindle a little bit.
Okay.
Just just because of, just the massive backlog of content there is now.
Yeah.
But Minecraft's just like one game. So, and there's like, some like spin-off stuff like story mode, but I think mostly because it's managed to, stay mostly within like one game for the most part, it's managed to like, keep its hold. Well, there's so much of FNAF that it's just starting to, fall a bit.
Okay. Well, looks like we're about at the end of our rope here. Do you have anything else you'd like the audience to know?
Um, not in particular. I just want to say that play games because studies are showing that they are good for you.
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, I'd say probably don't play too much because eventually that's gonna go sour on you. But I do
anything in
recommend
excess.
playing video games.
Anything in excess will go sour for you.
Yes, yes.
Well, this has been Speak Your Heat, and see us next time or whenever that is. Goodbye.
Yeah. See ya.